Hello. I'm finally getting around to making my tips and tricks and like questions answered video about any hair questions that anybody might have had or needing some help doing something with their hair. I want to say I have a lot of questions, but I wrote them down because I'm prepared. All right, so I did not write down anyone's names with the questions because I didn't know, like I'm sure some people wouldn't care, but I don't know if some people might be embarrassed about a question. So I'm just asking questions, well, answering questions that were asked, not saying a name. I don't know if anybody would care, but let's just be safe. So the first question was, how do I make flyaways die or lay down? One or the other. One of the best things I can recommend is, there's my dog. Using hairspray is a great thing that, it's almost like tacky enough to keep your flyaways down. And usually when people talk about flyaways, they talk about like the little baby hairs that are like right around your hairline, or like little pieces that want to like pop up after you like blow dry. What I personally do is, like, once I'm done with my style, everything's perfect, and I still see like little baby hairs or like little pieces, I'll like use a really light hairspray and like spray like the tips of my fingers and just kind of like lightly like lay my fingers on top of the flyaways, and it should stay down. Or if you were to spray on top of your hair, like, you know, and then just like very lightly like tap on top of your hair, it should help. But if you have like a ridiculous amount of flyaways, that's probably more of like a breakage situation, and you should definitely look into like how you're getting your hair done. If you have like blonde highlights, there could be like overlapping and you might be hitting some like breakage on the top, and that could be where the flyaways come from. Or if you wear your hair in a ponytail very frequently, especially a really tight one, wherever and it's a consistent thing, wherever that ponytail is holding could be snapping the hair in that spot. So you always, or using heat is a big thing that could be causing breakage. So there's like little factors with that, but usually for me, I have a lot of baby hairs on the side of my face. A little bit of hairspray, just kind of like tap it down, good to go. Check. So question 2 was, how do I cut my own bangs? So this is a tricky question. As someone who cuts hair, I don't ever recommend cutting anything of your own, because cutting your own hair, you're gonna run into, like, you're looking at yourself and you're looking at yourself in the mirror, and you could sometimes, like, the dimensions or something, you get caught up and your eyeballs could like cross and you end up cutting something, and then you're stuck with some lopsided bangs or lopsided something. But I understand why some people want to cut their own bangs, because I mean, it's hair in your face, it's gonna grow out in like 2 or 3 weeks. Your next appointment's not for another 6 or 8 weeks, so then you're stuck with either really, really long bangs or trying to do it yourself. this is such a tricky question. I always say, taking my hairdresser hat off, if you were to cut your own bangs, point cut, which means taking the tips of the scissors and just lightly pointing where you want it and just snipping at it. Because if you were to cut straight across, it's gonna be crooked, you're gonna be running into something that's a little crazy. Take your time. I can't believe I'm telling people this. Take your time, point cut, and then it should help. Do not go too crazy, or don't try to cut your own. Like, if you don't have bangs, don't cut your own bangs, because I've seen plenty of YouTube videos where it turns out terrible. Their bangs are all the way up to here, not purposely, and it's like too much. So the best suggestion I can say is, if you don't live close by to your hairdresser where you can just pop in for like a 10-minute like quick bang trim, point cut as close to your face as you can, because the more you pick it up, the more you're going to be over directing, and you're going to get like weird stacks in your hair. Point cut, little bits at a time, just until it's enough to where it's manageable. Do not go too crazy to try and give yourself a bang trim. Second question as good as it can get. Check. So my third question, gotta reposition myself. So it's kind of like I'm condensing this question, but essentially it says, how do I get my hair to blow dry the same or look the same at home like it did when you were in the salon? So I have several suggestions. Number one is product. You have to use a good, usually with a blowout from the salon, you're gonna have like a lot of volume, really soft, like maybe some like body like curls. Best thing, some root lift. You need a little bit of like a lift. And a root lift, it literally is like a spray type of, it's either like a foam or just a spray, and you literally section your hair and spray it on your roots. And what I like to tell people is when you're blow drying your hair, the best way to get some volume is to flip your head upside down. If you're not very good with a round brush, flip your head upside down, blow dry. It's blow dry upside down, closer to your roots, because that's over directing and giving you the lift. You want to blow dry before you even use a brush in your hair, like a round brush or like a paddle brush, anything. You want to blow dry your hair to like 75-80% dry, to where it's like barely damp to the touch when you're touching it, because the wetter your hair is, the softer and like more prone to breakage. So you don't want to be using a very like heavy like a metal brush pulling on your hair and just stretching it out. So blow dry it to like 75-80% dry. Make sure you're using good product, like a good leave-in, maybe some mousse to give it some body, like you really want something. And I've noticed the best thing for like at home is section it, like take it section by section, whether it take 2 sections or 6 sections. Section it, use your brush and kind of let it cool on the brush a little bit. Or once you're done with the section using the brush, take like one of those like Velcro rollers or just some sort of like roller that you can like clip your hair onto to let it set. And that's gonna be your best bet to getting like some sort of body. That the whole point of blow drying your hair is to heat it up so it's manageable, but to cool in the way that you want it to look. And so what else did I use? And it's all about over direction if you're wanting volume. So over directing means wherever your natural fall is. So all my hair naturally falls down like this. You're going to be blow drying it up. Or if it falls back like this, you'd be blow drying it forward like this. So then when it lays with a nice like softness or like a cute little swoop. So it's all about practice. So it's just taking the time to really make sure your hair is all the way dry when you're done, not to mess with it too much with your hands, because the more you mess with it with your fingers, the more it'll fall flat. So just trying to keep that in mind and using the correct product, because you're not going to make it look good if you're not using the proper things in your hair. Guess what? Check. So this next question is kind of similar to the last one. This one is tips on how to keep flat, thin hair from looking so flat. So, one thing about textures, let me just talk about this since this is thin. More often than not, when people say they have thin hair, they mean fine. So, there's different textures and like thicknesses. So, for instance, I have very fine hair, but I have a lot of it. Thin is when you can see your scalp through your hair. So I think when a lot of people say they have thin hair, they mean fine, which is, that's fine. A lot of people don't know that. They get it mixed up. But usually for like finer hair, it's harder to get volume because the hair is so silky soft and so like the actual hair strand is so small. That's really what it is. It's like the thickness of the hair strand. And so thinner hair, you don't want to use too much. You have to use product, but you don't want to use too much because then you might be running into what is this? Running into it feeling sticky or gummy or anything like that. So since I have thinner hair, I feel like I can kind of answer this question well. One thing I do like to use, compared to like I have 2 products that I really like to use on my roots. I like to use like a root lift. Redken has one called Guts. It's literally like you spray directly on your roots. You section, you don't want to do it like right on your part, but you section out your hair, spray on the roots, kind of rub it in. There's also another one, a type of root lift by Pureology called, what is it called? Levitation Mist. And that is essentially the same thing. It's not a foam, it's just a spray, but you spray it right on your roots. And when you're blow drying, you want to, I think the easiest thing, because a lot of people, it's hard for you to like people to round brush hair on yourself because you're pulling your hands up and forward and back and you're doing all this crazy stuff. One thing that's really good is to flip your head upside down and blow dry, because you're using gravity to your advantage. Gravity is pulling your hair up, over directing it, even though you're upside down, but it's doing what it needs to be doing. Blow dry it, and then when you flip back around, kind of let it cool a little bit, or you can kind of just like smooth out the ends, but that usually helps with the flatness. Because a lot of people like that sleek, straight look, but I can understand with thinner hair, it almost looks like it's like stuck to your head. So that will kind of help. And then the other product I really like, if you're wanting something very light, like just a little bit, just so it doesn't look like it's slick stuck to your head, is a salt, like a sea salt spray. It's good because it gives you a little slight lift, a little bit, and it's also really good for preventing your hair from getting incredibly oily, because I don't know if anybody's ever tried like sea salt spray after they've like curled their hair or to like scrunch up their hair, but it does make your hair feel a little bit drier. So that's good to help prevent oil as well on your roots, which is a thing for thinner, I even said it, finer hair. If you have oily skin, an oily scalp, if you have finer hair, it's like you're wanting to wash your hair every single day, which is also not very good. Dirtier, if you use like dry shampoo, the dirtier your hair is, use a little dry shampoo, that'll give you a little zhuzh too. I personally, sometimes after I'm done blow drying my hair clean, I'll just do like a quick little like on my like part, and maybe on like my crown, like a little bit of dry shampoo, just because it's like a powdered substance that gives you a little bit of like something. And then they also make like powder type of root lifts that you put on your hair when your hair is dry, that gives you a little bit of a texture and like a little bit of grit, so you can actually, like, if you wanted to tease your hair or just use that, you can just kind of like put it in your hair and you have something. So I think I answered that question, hopefully, maybe. Done. The next question is the best product for soft silky hair. So I prefer products that you blow dry into your hair. I feel like you're getting more of a benefit out of it than to just topically put like an oil or like a cream or something on top of your hair after your hair is dry. Don't feel like it benefits your hair as much. I personally like creams or serums that are not too heavy but are supposed to be used when your hair's damp. So then when you're blow drying your hair, it's smoothing down your cuticle. A lot of the times, like smoothing creams and stuff have heat protection. So you're blow drying it into your hair. It's protecting your hair from the heat. So then if you wanted to curl your hair, you have that heat protection, which is a very, very important thing to use. That's mainly my favorite thing. I'm not opposed to oils, like Moroccan oil, love Moroccan oil. Some certain brands, like there's by Redken, there's one called Glow Dry oil, but it's an oil that you put in your hair prior to blow drying. So and then like there's some people like to use like coconut oil or almond oil or like all natural oils, which personally I don't think that some of them are the best for hair. For instance, coconut oil, it has a very low heating point or smoke point. So like once it hits like 80 degrees Fahrenheit, it can smoke. So if you're putting it on your hair and you're curling your hair with a 300-degree curling iron, it's almost like you're cooking your hair. So that's why I prefer things that are supposed to be designed for your hair to put it in your hair. And coconut oil, another thing with it, it's very high in protein. So if your hair already has a lot of protein in it and you're putting something with even more protein in your hair, it can be prone to breaking or snapping or just anything like that. So if you don't read up, if you don't know what's going on with your hair, it's not a good idea to just start experimenting and putting a whole bunch of different things on your hair that could possibly not even be helping at all. So if you're going to put in oil, I would say use an oil designed for your hair, not something that you can get out of your kitchen. Not saying anything is absolutely terribly wrong with certain oils like that, like coconut oil or olive oil or whatever, but it depends on the health of your hair, what's going on with your hair, the texture of your hair. Sometimes those oils are better suited for people with very coarse, curly hair. Curly hair tends to be very dry, so that's one thing that is a little bit better. So I think that helped a little bit. Okay, so this next question is, it's not really a question, it's just curling tips or techniques. So I'll just start from the beginning of when you would want to curl your hair. So some people they always want their hair curled. Some people like to curl their hair when it's like second day hair, so it's a little bit dirtier. Sometimes it stays a little better that way. But let's just say you just want like a wave, like something like what I have going on, just like really loose curls. What I always suggest is using a curling iron that has a heat gauge on it. There are some curling iron out there where you just click it on and it just turns on. I don't really like to recommend those because you're not controlling your heat. If you have very fine hair, turning your curling iron all the way up to like 400 or 450 degrees is such a bad idea. You do not need that. Finer hair people, you're probably okay with doing like 250 to 300 degrees on your hair, and it will curl your hair. So that's always a very important thing. Heat protection is also a very important thing. So either spraying something on your dry hair, which if you are using a heat protection spray that is a spray in your hair, spray your whole head, comb or brush it through and let it dry. Do not spray and then while it's still wet start to curl your hair, because why would you want to put something that is that hot on wet hair? So spray, let it sit and dry and brush it through so then it's in your hair, and then go through your whole head and curl. Or me personally, I like to use products that you blow dry in your hair because I feel like they work just a little bit better. But so once your hair, if you're whatever day it might be, you want to curl your dry hair, take it section by section. You don't need to go too crazy with it, because I'm like, the style nowadays is not, you don't need anything super uniform or anything like that. So what I usually say is, when you pick up, I'll just demonstrate on my hair. When you pick up your hair, you want to, if you're using a clamp, which usually people who are not hairdressers use a clamp curling iron, the one where it's like spring loaded, you start in the middle and you curl up and curl away from your face. Actually, I'm gonna go grab my curling iron. Got my curling iron. And this curling iron is I think 1 1/4 inch diameter. You're gonna get really, the bigger the curling iron, the looser the wave or the looser the curl. So you don't want to take a too big of a section. I usually like to take like vertical sections, which is a section that goes down like that. A horizontal section is going to be a section horizontal, so it's going to be a lot wider but more narrow, whereas a vertical section is going to be a lot longer but I guess narrow in the other way. So you pick up a piece. This is not turned on or anything. So you start in the middle and curl up, and then work. So you see how I'm pinching it a little bit? Work your way down the hair and then just keep curling. Work your way down a little bit farther. And I usually like to leave about 1 inch out. Curl up, and then you're just gonna slowly release it. Obviously, it's not gonna really curl my hair because it's not on. But once you do that, it'll be pretty much like a perfect spiral curl. Leave it alone. Do not run your fingers through it. That's one of the biggest things, is people running their fingers through warm hair, your curl is just gonna completely go away. So leave it alone, spray it with hairspray, whatever you'd like. and then just keep going section by section. I usually wait until the very end to do anything, like run my fingers through. So I usually curl my hair in like 2 to 3 sections, if I'm really have a lot of extra time. So you just keep going like up from the bottom all the way up to the hair. And the reason why you want to start in the middle and you don't want to put too much time on your ends, because if you think about it, your ends, that's your oldest hair. So you don't need to put a lot of heat on that part. Your healthiest hair is on the top of your head, because that's the newest, youngest hair. So to curl the ends of your hair is not going to take much. So you don't want to start at the very end like this and wrap up your curling iron, because pretty much by the time you're done, you're not going to have any curl on the bottom or you're not going to have any curl on the top of your hair. You're only going to have curl on the bottom of your hair, and it just doesn't look good. So start in the middle, keep working your way, and then leave a little bit out, and then that's it. Pretty much spray, and once the hairspray is dry and your hair feels cool to the touch, you'll feel a difference once you have curled your hair. Like, you'll feel your hair being warm and then slowly cool off. I usually just run my fingers through my hair like this, and then it just breaks up the curl. I think that's one of my biggest pet peeves, and I'm not calling anybody out because everybody has done it, but seeing curls, and they're very beautifully executed curls, but they have not been like raked through, and it's just these like ginormous, I call them dookie curls, just too much. Run your fingers through it. That's going to give you a pretty tousled look, like nice, cute curls. You don't want the crunchy, and that's one thing that I've always told people, do not spray your hair while it is sitting on that curling iron. You are going to fry your hair. That's like the absolute worst thing you can do. So, another trick is, since you are primarily curling away from your face, sometimes getting to the back of your head is pretty hard. So I always just tell people to like part your hair down the middle and just bring it to each side. So then you'll curl all of this away and all of this away, and then once you're done, you just flip it around and run your fingers through, so then all of the hair gets curled and you're not having to like break your arms to try and get to the back of your head. But I think that's it. I think that's all pretty much it with curling. It takes practice. Sometimes when you first do it, it might not look exactly like how you want, but I think it's pretty much it. If you're using a wand, I'll just pretend that this is a wand. You need to be kind of like, what's the word, ambidextrous with it, like use both hands. I always say like the side that you're curling, hold the curling iron in the opposite hand, because you always want to hold it up, because when you're curling away from your face, see, watch, you want to curl away, and holding it in the opposite hand is going to help you curl it away from your face. So if I were curling this side, I'm going to hold it with so this is my left side, my right hand. I had to think there for a second. And then you're going to hold it above like this and wrap. And that way you're going to get that pretty curl that's going away from your face, and you're curling the correct spots. Because trying to curl your hair with a wand with the hand that's on the same side, I don't know how people were to do it. Like, you would have to curl like up the curling iron. I don't know. I just don't see how that would be easy. Holding it above your head and just keeping the curling iron like perpendicular to your head and wrapping it around like that, you're gonna get the best result. So I think that's it. I don't know any person who's not a hairdresser that uses a Marcel iron, which if you are not a hairdresser and you don't know what that is, don't even worry about it. It's not important. But yeah, that's about it. Make sure you use a good hairspray. For me, I like a flexible hold, so I try not to use anything too terribly strong, because I am constantly touching my hair. If you haven't noticed watching this video, I'm constantly touching my hair. So yeah, I think that's it. I'm about to check this bad boy. Okay, so the next question is how to use leave-in products without going overboard. So this is something that I personally ran into as well. It definitely is important to read the directions on the back of the label. If it's a pump, if it says 1 to 2 pumps, do not pump 12 times in your hand like that, obviously. But it also depends on length. It depends on thickness of your hair, what exactly the product is, and so forth. So I always tell people, if it's not designed for your roots, like if it's not like a root lift or like a mousse or something like that, what you want to do is like tops of ears down, or like where you would have like a low ponytail, this is what would be getting the product. And then if you happen to have, if it's like a smoothing serum or a smoothing balm, once you're done doing your ends, maybe if you have a little bit extra, kind of just like barely like rake it. You don't want to touch your roots with something that's not designed for your roots, because it's going to look like you need to take a shower immediately once your hair is dry. I'm trying to think of other things that you would use. I usually just recommend tops of ears down spray, like a leave-in conditioner or like a blow dry type of spray. Focus it like around this crown area, like where technically it's your occipital bone, but like where that bone like divot in your head and down. And then you're not gonna have to worry about your roots getting kind of like oily looking if you're using too much product. And I've also run into where I'm not using enough product, and so I blow dry my hair and I'm looking at my hair and I'm like, this does not look good. So it's just like a trial and error type of thing with new products that you've never used before. I would say pumps, use 1 pump, and then if you need more, use 2. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like a trial and error, seeing what works well for you and trying not to use too much. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it for trying not to go overboard. That's pretty much it. Uh-oh. Check. So the last 2 questions I have kind of coincide, but I'm gonna split them up anyway, but I'm gonna read both of them. So one is just like helping with dry winter hair, which in Michigan, it's almost inevitable. It doesn't matter how healthy your hair is. And then the next question is how to prevent dry ends. So let me go with the dry winter hair first, because that can just be your whole head. So when it's cold and dry, like how it has been, it's incredibly hard to keep your hair feeling a certain type of, like, just nice. One thing, not just that I've noticed on myself, but I've noticed on some of my clients, is like scalps tend to get dry. Like just think of your skin, like when it's this cold and dry out, like your skin gets really dry, so of course your scalp is gonna get dry. So it's very important to clarify your hair. I guess it depends on how often you shampoo your hair. If you're like an every day or an every other day, maybe you could clarify your hair maybe like twice a month. But making sure you really get your scalp clean, get the dry skin off of your scalp, because the more it collects, you're kind of depleting your hair of the natural like nutrients and oils from your scalp. So make sure you're really scrubbing it good and getting all of the flakes off, because it happens to everybody. It's not something that to be embarrassed by. It's wintertime, it's gonna be dry. My hands are dry, my kneecaps are dry, like you're just gonna be dry. So that was mainly the difference between just winter dry hair and dry ends, because more often than not, it's someone's ends that are feeling kind of dry. So a few things I like to recommend: make sure you're using a really good like leave-in product, whether it's like a leave-in conditioner, like a spray, or doing like a blow dry type of spray. That's going to keep your hair evenly moisturized. Especially like the Redken, like One United, or the Pureology, the 21 Benefits, the Color Fanatic, or one of my favorites is the Design Me. Oh my gosh, what's it called? Not the Power Dry Me. It's in the green bottle. It's a leave-in conditioner. It's going to evenly distribute moisture in your hair, so it's not going to be too oily up here and not moisturized enough down here. So using a leave-in spray type of product is absolutely amazing. Avoiding heat on your hair as much as you can, because heat is going to bring dryness. I know it's really hard. I feel like I have to use heat on my hair. If I don't, I feel like I'm like, what have I done? So when you use the leave-in product, you're putting heat protection in your hair, so you're not having to worry about overly drying your ends, because ends just tend to want to be dry anyway, especially if you stretch out your shampoos. What I myself have noticed, and just clients notice in general, whenever you're using dry shampoo on your hair, yeah, your roots feel fine, but your ends start to feel a little dry. So I also like recommending using a mask, like a very thick type of conditioner. So if you wash your hair every day, you probably could do a mask once a week. If you wash your hair every 3 or 4 days, you could probably do a mask like 1 or 2 times a month. So, and a mask is essentially, it's like using conditioner. Like you would use it the same as using conditioner. You just leave it in your hair a little bit longer, and it's a very thick consistency. So it's really gonna coat each cuticle of your hair and really help it lay down properly and moisturize it properly. I think I know a lot of people who will wash their hair at night, put the mask on, put their hair in like a cap or something and sleep with the mask, just so they can get those added benefits and really deeply moisturize the hair, because it's like making sure you have lotion around to moisturize your skin. Like it acts just like your skin. Oils are an optional thing. I prefer oils specifically made for your hair, like a Moroccan oil or any type of brand, like hair brand oil, because you're not going to run into possibly like frying your hair, literally like an egg, frying your hair like an egg if you were to curl it, blow dry it, whatever. And more often than not, usually use oils after you've done your heat styling anyway. So you would rub it in your hair and kind of like break through your curls, or if you have really nice smooth straight hair, just kind of like break the oils through your hair. But that's an option, because sometimes oils, it'll be too much and almost it like doesn't even do anything for you. So that's why I'm a big fan of leave-in products that you can spray in your hair, because it's like a conditioner, spraying conditioner in your hair. And I've known some people who are very dry people who can wash their hair like once a week. After they've done a dry shampoo, they either have used like a dry conditioner on their ends, a spray like dry conditioner, which is essentially the same as dry shampoo, except dry shampoo is drying your roots and your scalp, and then dry conditioner is moisturizing, or have used a leave-in product on their dry hair, which you have to be really careful with that. That's not something that I would totally recommend, because you can easily do way too much, like way too much, and then you're combing your hair and it's like you have lotion on your hair. So and then I usually tell people, if you go to sleep with your hair wet, especially on not a silk pillowcase, excuse me, on a cotton pillowcase, cotton just soaks up any moisture that could possibly be in your face, in your hair. Try to go to sleep with your hair dry. That's going to be your best bet. Maybe even like doing like a loose braid is going to keep your hair from like rubbing on the pillowcase, and your pillowcase essentially stealing all of the nice natural oils in your hair. And I mean, you could sleep on a silk pillowcase. It'll keep your hair from looking frizzy, which also comes from dryness. So there's definitely several different things. I have to say, just going back to anything that I've talked about before, you have to use the proper products. You need to know what type of hair like your type, like the hair type. You need to know what your hair needs, what you're lacking, and what you might have too much of. Like one thing I've noticed is usually, more often than not, people who have blonde hair, like really lightened blonde hair, or even just some highlights in their hair, they're lacking protein. And so they're not using something with protein in it, and their hair stays really dry and brittle. And there's also people who are using something with protein in it that don't need it, and it does an alternative effect on their hair. It makes their hair feel dry and brittle as well, because it's too much protein. So talking with your hairdresser and finding out what's appropriate for your hair and what's right for your hair is definitely very important. Not just because I am a hairdresser, but whenever we make recommendations to you, whether it be shampoo, conditioner, hairspray, any type of product, we're not just saying it to try and sell you something. We're saying it so you can have the best hair that you possibly can have. We don't want you using Suave at home, stripping all the color out of your hair. We don't want you using any type of like crazy hairsprays that have an immense amount of alcohol in them that's going to dry your hair out. We try to keep your best interests in mind when it comes to your hair, because you're a walking advertisement. We don't want your hair to look crunchy and fried and nasty, and then someone come up to you and say, "Oh, who did your hair?" And you say, Emily did it, and then nobody wants to come to me anymore because your hair looks like. So that's one of the main things, is to try and make sure that you are listening and doing your hair homework and making sure that you're being good to your hair. You know, well, I mean, it'll grow back, but it takes a long time, so you gotta be good to your hair. But I think that's it. I think that's all of my questions that I was asked. I love that I had so many people comment and talk to me, and I'm hoping that this video helps a little bit. I was thinking of doing maybe like a makeup tip video, if that was something that people would want to see. I like doing these videos, so leave me a comment. Tell me if you want to do it. But yeah, so enjoy. If you have any more questions, comment them and maybe I'll answer them if I did not answer them in this video. And have fun. Have fun with your hair. I love you. Goodbye.